We're back again with the Audi Q7. This time the issue is the power liftgate function, or more precisely, liftgate non-function. The plan for this video was to show the behavior of the liftgate, then replace the motors, which at the time I thought were the problem, and then show that the repair worked. While I was trying to make the first video, the liftgate went from partially working to not working at all, and the entire plan went out the window. The car's fixed now, so there's really nothing interesting to show, so you just get me. I'm now going to violate the fundamental rule of internet videos, which is to drag it out as long as possible before giving people what they came for. So in case you just want to fix your car and not listen to me ramble on for the next 10 minutes or so, the problem turned out to be broken wires at the flex point where the harness goes from the car to the liftgate. If you're still here, I'll tell you the whole story. It started over a year ago. On random occasions, when I would stop the car, leave the car in gear with my foot on the brake, and then open the liftgate, the car would beep and tell me the passenger side brake light and turn signal were not working. If you looked around the car, the lights were indeed not on. The odd thing was that once you turned the car off and started again, everything was fine. Thinking it might be a broken filament that was making intermittent contact, I checked the lamps, but they were okay. The other thought was that there was a wire shorting out somewhere when the liftgate moved, and that it was confusing the computer, making it think a bulb had burned out. I didn't have wiring diagrams for the car, and even if I did, the harness is jacketed, and it would be a pain to try to figure this out, so I just ignored it. The issue stayed about the same for the better part of a year. Then the liftgate started having issues. At first, it would only open 3/4 of the way. Other than that, it worked fine. I barely even took notice of this until someone hit their head on the partially open liftgate. Around this time, the taillight issues started getting worse. The passenger side taillights would go out just when I was driving down the road. Over the next few weeks, the liftgate went from opening 3/4 of the way to only halfway. Then it started having issues closing. You'd push the button and nothing would happen. However, if you started closing it manually, after it moved a little bit, the motors would kick in and it would close itself. I could not find much on the internet about this issue. My guess was that the issue must be the sensors that tell the liftgate how far open it was. There had to be some sort of limits built into the motors, and if they were giving the wrong information to the computer, it would explain the problem. Unfortunately, the motors are about $900 each from the dealer. You can get them a little cheaper online, but still, they are expensive. There are 2 of them, and they're not interchangeable. With the tools that I have, there was no way to know which one was bad, and if I guessed wrong, I would wind up replacing both of them. I could have gotten used ones off of eBay for around $100 each, but if they don't fix the problem, I wouldn't know if the used ones were bad or if the motor wasn't the problem in the first place. Searching further on the internet, I found some forums where people talk about replacing the liftgate motors. Some people installed used motors, and they worked for a few months, and then they stopped working. Some people replaced the motors for the liftgate, and the liftgate still didn't work. There was some talk about new motors needing to be registered via the Audi diagnostic computer, which really didn't sound right, but who knows. Overall, nothing really sounded like anyone knew what they were talking about, but it did certainly show the possibility that I could replace $1,800 worth of motors and still not fix the problem. Due to this fact, and the fact that I had recently received a 25% off coupon from the dealer, I decided to bite the bullet and bring it into the dealer. I figured the dealer could hook it up to their computer and be able to tell which motor was bad and only replace that one. And even with their ridiculous labor rate, I'd be ahead. Additionally, the dealership has seen thousands of these cars, so probably they've encountered something similar before. When I brought it in, I asked if they had seen this issue before, and all they would say is that they have a procedure for testing to determine the cause of the problem. They, of course, wanted an upfront diagnostic fee to hook up the computer. That didn't show anything. So they wanted an additional 3 hours of diagnostic time to tear apart the back of the car to look into things further. After this, they said the liftgate latch was shorting out the ground and needed to be replaced. I didn't fully buy this, since the latch never seemed to give me any issues, but they said they couldn't do anything further until the latch was replaced, so I let them do that. Not surprisingly, this did not fix the problem. It was another day or 2 before they called and said they found the issue: broken wires. And there's the problem right there, broken wires. You can see them quite clearly. Once I heard this, I briefly considered taking the car back and just doing the repair myself. Repairing the brake itself would probably be a bad idea because the repair would be right at the stress point. I figured I could cut out 12 inches of wire, put a new piece of wire and butt splice it at both ends, and that would probably work well enough. However, at this point, the repair would be a minor part of the bill compared to the diagnostics, and I also figured they replaced the entire harness. So I told them to go ahead and fix the wires, and that fixed all the problems. I got the old parts here. And turns out they just basically did what I would have done and replaced the wires, not the harness. They basically looks like they tested it first. They twisted the wires together and then taped it and saw that worked, and then just put a new section in. Here's the trunk latch. Over here, I tested this on the bench. Of course, it works fine. Could it have failed some tests of theirs? Maybe, but more likely the broken wires threw some code to the computer that told them the latch was bad. They claimed they tested it offline, but I have my doubts. So was it worth it to go to the dealer? In this case, at least for me, I'd give it a qualified probably. I had assumed that I had no chance of finding an electrical fault in the harness and would have replaced both motors and been no closer to fixing the problem. In hindsight, it's obvious that I should have checked the harness in this location. While I had not connected the taillight issue with the opening issue until the failure was found, any electrical faults in the liftgate indicate that signals and power are not getting to where they have to go. While vibration could cause all sorts of problems, if the wires are going to break, they're most likely going to break where the wires flex repeatedly. It should be noted that the wires are not visible. You have to remove the covering of the harness to see the wires. I doubt my local mechanic would have known to look here. Would an Audi shop have known? Maybe, maybe not. It's all going to depend on the experience of the technician. And that is the one thing that annoys me. As I was getting the car back, I asked the dealer if they had seen this before. They said yes. Not in all of them, but in many. Personally, if I had known this was a potential issue, it would be the first place I would have checked. Of course, if they did that, they wouldn't have been able to charge 4 to 5 hours of diagnostic time. The procedure may allow an inexperienced technician to do a thorough investigation, but it seems to put the most likely cause at the end. Then again, what do you expect from the dealer? Good question is why these break. If you look back at the picture, you can see that the wires on the inside of the bend is where they broke, where the bend's the sharpest. This makes sense since the wires are being punished the most here. If you would think Audi would have cycle tested this during development, but who knows how far they went. This could just be bad design. Could also be that the manufacturing is not super well controlled, and if the harness is installed 1 inch off, it changes the bend radius enough to where the wires will fail eventually. Once again, bad design. It's also possible the wire source changed at some point, looking for a cheaper source, and the new wires are made of a slightly different grade of copper that's more susceptible to this kind of failure. Regardless of the reason, this is a real potential point of failure, and if your liftgate or anything on it is not working, it is definitely a place to check. I do have a short video that shows some of the behavior of the liftgate when it wasn't working right, and I will splice that to the end of this video. I also have one where I show how to remove the interior trim that covers the motors. You probably would need to remove this if you're going to repair the harness. I'll post that one separately. Thank you for watching. So we're back here with the Audi Q7, and we're having problems with the liftgate once again. And the problem, as you can see, is that it stops when it goes up. It used to go up higher. Now it's not been going up as much. When it gets open to a certain level, see, the button doesn't work anymore. That was the initial problem, was the button would not work. However, if you close it down to a certain point, it suddenly closes. I've tried to find this on the internet, have not found a lot of stories about this. The closest thing I got, someone did have similar symptoms and they replaced the motors, and that seemed to help the problem at least. The problem is, the motors are about $700 or $800, even $900, and there are 2 of them. So if only one of them is bad and we start replacing motors, it should be a lot of money. So unfortunately, I have a bad feeling this is going to go into the dealer, and hopefully they can plug into the computer and figure out what's wrong with it. And then we'll hopefully be able to figure out after that what really needed to be done.